And I found the same phenomena in India with some of the older people were not as progressive as some of the younger people. In a sense, they were going through similar things. But because there were so many young people searching, it made it all right to look for whatever. Everybody wants meaning in their life, not just escaping from pain. They want to know who they are, and something of value makes their life more fulfilling. So I was having a good time because there were so many people searching and they supported one another. But then, I met my wife, and it wasn't an array have similar ethics, similar interests. You could be different because the difference supports one another, but basically, if you have the same ethics and the same interests and you communicate and support one another, it can be a very productive uh, union. And soon, because we knew each other before we became devotees, it was very strong. And she happened to be a great sadhu, and such a great sadhu that it spilled over on me, who's not such a great sadhu. But then she went to New York, and then she met the Swami, and then she came back and she was raving about meeting the Swami. And so there was a temple that started in New York, and then the the sister of my wife, Jamuna, and her husband were coming to San Francisco to start the second branch of Krishna consciousness. Now, I don't know if you know the story, but he came. India knows about Vivekananda coming to the West and how much he influenced people. And people know about Paramahansa Yogananda and how he influenced people. Well, he came on a steamship. He had a minor stroke. He still went on. He had equivalent of $7 because that's all you could take, 40 rupees. And alone, because his guru said, bring this knowledge to the Western English speaking world. And he was somewhat of a poet himself. But at the age of 71, not knowing one person, not knowing them, just having a name, and having a stroke, most people would go back. Actually, because we may be great, but we're also somewhat human. I don't know if you know this, but Swamiji wanted to go back because he missed Vrindavan, which is the magic town of 5,000 temples, and now he's in a strange world, a cold world. New York City, that's a whole other planet. And he had these Bengali shoes that go like this. So he had his robes on and his Bengali shoes. And so he went to the customs office and saw the ship. And the customs man said, Swamiji, you're coming here, but are you going to go back to India? And he said, no, I was thinking about it, but just seeing the ships got it out of my system. Just like when Mahatma Gandhi was asked to cure somebody of sweets, he said, "Come back tomorrow." Why tomorrow? Because I had to deal with my own addiction to sweets. So like so like acupuncture, seeing those ship times got him took a thorn out with a thorn. It's like medicine. But then he was in New York and he met some young people, and it was in the storefront temple, and it was very successful. And so then he wanted something in San Francisco. And so because my girlfriend, she wasn't my wife yet, was raving about the Swami, we were getting ready to welcome him. In the meantime, her brother-in-law, Mukunda, came to help us prepare, and he was like a, a Siksha guru. You know what that is? Siksha. It's something, even nature can be a Siksha guru. It's something you learn from, but that's not your Diksha guru, which is the guru that you give gifts to. But like, he could be my Siksha guru as well, and maybe I would be his, sharing wisdom. Now, speaking of that, that's one of the first principles he gave us. One of the first principles he gave us, which is called Das Anudas. This principle, now, when he came, we became a family, and we were eager to help him, and everything was new and exotic and a purification process. But in this, he instilled this idea, Das Anudas, which means we serve one another. And that's why this is such a vibrant, beautiful community worldwide. Because he wants my success, and I want his success, and I want your success. And we were on the train one time in the first class compartment, and he said, "Do you know what the meaning of Prabhu is?" Prabhu means master, and he said, "If I call you Prabhu and you think you're master, that's not the meaning." And so it means we want to serve one another. And so that's the principle he gave us. Now, as I said, I was having fun, and I will repost this question tomorrow, and some of these few things tomorrow I'm going to reiterate. But it really was hedonistic, pleasurable times. Do you know what hedonistic means? It means very pleasurable. Everything was free. Why would I want to follow a 70-year-old man who's telling me to not have any fun anymore? Because the four principles of initiation were no intoxication, and I was eating LSD for breakfast. Well, not every day, but I was involved in the psychotropic world, and no meat eating. That wasn't a problem because I was already a vegetarian. And no illicit sex means if you want to have sex, get married. And then no gambling, which it doesn't mean not going to Las Vegas. It means not speculating. Oh, if only I was in I'm mad, I'd feel better. If I was in this place, if my job was better. It's a speculative. Now you see the future, visions are okay, but if sometimes we encroach upon the future by our desires, and that's counterproductive. So that's part of the no speculation. But he also said at one time, if I told you of the rules and regulations when you were beginning, you wouldn't even come. Because we were so used to this pleasure and give up intoxicants, what? But when we started being with him, and we didn't even get to see him immediately at first because he was translating books, and we only got to see him 3 times a week. But as we got to know him, he was, and I met many, many famous people and good people. People who told me to go get out of the civil rights movement because I was too creative and not political. And I had a discussion with Bob Dylan that we could do more with creativity, with song and story to reach people's hearts than political rhetoric. Yeah, I gave him the string and broke. That's another story. So Krishna put me in meeting many mentors, but I never met someone so kind. And my father's a good man. He was kind. He never hit me. And I deserve to be his sometimes. He came amongst us and he was peeling apples and giving us this compassion and loving kindness. Now, being from India, there's more people like that, but we were not used to that. It was so charming. And the answer to the question why I would follow him is because he identified it and said, I've given you the Vedic culture. He's such a visionary. He's on top of the mountain. He could see us crawling up, each and every one of us, different people. And he said he's going to combine the culture of India, the East, with the dynamics of the West. Just see a vision like that, the culture of India with the dynamics of the, and that's what we've done. That's what this movement is. Yeah, to a degree. To a degree, the know-how. Just like one time when telex came out, it was like an early fax machine. And we were trying to get a palace from a king, Maharaja Bhartpur, and we lost it because of snail mail. So I say to Prabhupada that we could have a telex machine in every temple of the world so we could communicate. And he said, yes, but they might just gossip on it as well. You see, in his simple way, he was saying social media. It's a tool or not. It's a scalpel, saving, or a murder weapon, depending upon how you use it. Someone gave him a watch. I think it's called digital watch, where you go like that and the time comes up. Well, there was a game. People would give him watches, and a lot of times he would take the watch he had and give it. He was very selfless. He was using his trunk as a desk. He didn't ask much for us, and that's what impressed us. He was great but humble. So when somebody gave him a watch, sometimes he'd take that one off. But see, if someone was really desiring that watch, he knew he'd read their mind and wouldn't play the game. He was good at reading minds. My mind, too. If I tried to fabricate the truth, he would bust me. Uh, so the person gave him the digital watch, and he says, "So now I need two hands to tell the time?" And that's the other thing. He was so full of humor, and you never knew what was going to come out of his mouth. Some some balls from India came, from Bengal, and they were a traveling troupe, and they did bhajans and plays, and they were called Sahajya. And I was going to do a play with this Ashok Fakir, but Prabhupada finally, Swamiji said no, because our literature was a little bit more authentic. But to show you that you never knew what he was going to say or do, uh, we were doing a kirtan, and this Ashok Fakir fainted. So there are different mystic cities here standing on end. Fainting in ecstasy is one of the ecstasies. So he fainted in ecstasy from our kirtan, but then it was his time to speak on the microphone. And miraculously, he got up from his trance just in time to speak. So I say, because I was like a little kid, like I asked him, can we wear Lord Nrsimha masks on Harinam? The lion mask? Can we do? I was like a kid. Uh, isn't snuff an intoxicant? No, it's a medicine or drug depending on how you use it. You see again. So this man faints and then he gets up, and I said, Swamiji, it looked phony. In America, they say fishy. It looks fishy. It looks phony. If I see someone fainting like that and you think it's phony, what should I do? But he said, kick him. Now, he was very nonviolent. So I don't want this story to be misunderstood. But I just wanted to show you that you never knew what he was going to do or say. And he was very truthful. And he said, well, if he's in ecstasy, he won't feel it. And if he's pretending, he will. So if we were to write a list of what we wanted, of our impression of what a Swami from India would be like, or a Rinpoche from Tibet, he fulfilled all the categories and more. And so then we got to be with him more. He was translating, but now we had more access to him. And sitting among us, he was just on the floor. He wasn't, later on, there was this Vyasa. He was so humble. He just sat on the floor with us. Women are not always treated well in the world. They're the silent minority. Chauvinistic people can take advantage of women. Even in the spiritual movement, some people can take things out of context and mistreat. And what he did, it was like men and women, his daughters and his sons. And that was a healthy message too, because we were actually a family. And as we grew to love him, we would do anything. And we eventually we did. I mean, going into foreign countries and war zones. It's tremendous some of the stories that have built this movement. But he was so kind, and he would see into our hearts individually. Now, there's three aspects that I think about in devotional service. One is Shastra, and I'm going to reiterate some of this again. Shastra is the books, the Vedic wisdom, the Bhagavad Gita. Then it's our sadhana, our practice. Yesterday I saw the red airplanes flying next to one another. We have them in San Francisco called the Blue Angels. But they have to be so focused. They're flying for hours right next to one another. They have to be so focused, otherwise they'd crash. And so spiritual life is like that. It's the razor's edge. It doesn't have to be like painful razor's edge, but it's focused, meaning we want to use every moment in our relationship with Krishna. And and a lot of it is our intention within our sincere, real intention in our practice. And when we chant, it's like a child crying out for his mother, please let me serve you, please let me serve humanity. May I be a good devotee. Sometimes the mother chastises the child. And what does the child do? Still holds on to the mother, shelter, even though the mother. So this is kind of the relationship with God. So he was so kind and compassionate and seen inside of each of our hearts. The third part of the formula, Shastra and sadhana, is seva, some kind of act of devotion, can be very small. Something selfless, getting out of our own egos that we can share with the world to make it better. I was the seventh, but soon there were more people. And we had a storefront temple in San Francisco. And one of the things we did was feed people. That's another one of our principles. I was standing looking at some art uh, in Barsana, in the back hills of Vrindavan, and we were both looking at the art, and he said, art means full belly, meaning, yeah, there's a picture of it in that book, of us looking at the art. The third second, more in India. And he said, art means full belly, that if you're surviving, you won't have the luxury to appreciate the art. And if you're starving, you can't appreciate Krishna consciousness. So feed everyone. So that's one of our first principles that we started feeding people. Yeah, this one here. I was the first photographer. I was the first photographer, so that this is the latest thing I've put out. Uh,
You did
229 photos.
Any of them were
Oh yeah,
there in the archive.
that were the only ones in the beginning. The portrait one. Not 229 of Prabhupada because there's some of me, and there were no selfies back then, so somebody else had. At any rate, this was the thing that suddenly we were growing and getting a chance to do what our talents are. Because if Krishna gives you a talent, bhakti yoga devotion means using that talent, not doing something that you don't want to do. That's artificial. We have a relationship with Krishna, you, me, that's unique and special. And it's your relationship with Krishna. And that's what uh, Prabhupada Swamiji was encouraging, that we be who we really are for Krishna. Now, in a movement like this, sometimes it's hard because we're acting the same and doing the same things, and there's a certain standard, and you want to act like a puckered devotee. But Krishna knows. So you really want to be yourself. The writer, Oscar Wilde, he said, be yourself, everyone else is taken. Be yourself, everyone else is taken. So he encouraged us to be ourselves. And in that way, the movement, more and more people came, and it grew. And in the early days of San Francisco, he had to spoon feed us this Vedic knowledge. Now, today, we have deities, we have Kartals, we have Prabhus. Back then, we didn't have anything. The altar was not the same. The altar, he sat on the altar, which some people would think is blasphemous, perhaps, but he sat on the altar playing a bongo drum, and he had to spoon feed us the prayers, and even feeding people is very important. The second foundation principle is our kirtan, the holy names. So I will reiterate this story again, but it is a wonderful story in our movement. So now we had a storefront temple, and we had some people, and he was telling us, showing us this is the Vedic culture, and this prayer is this, and this. He was teaching us to cook. Actually, he was teaching everything. He taught me accounting. Accounting means putting it down immediately. He taught me how to, uh, when we go looking for another property, look for litigations, for cracks in the wall. He was so intelligent but it's fun and adventurous, and nothing was out of the box because he believed in Krishna. So sometimes he sent me to do impossible things like go see the American ambassador in Delhi and ask the ambassador for a free apartment for the American and European devotees on a Sunday, not even on his office. So I go to his house and I go to the door and I'm knocking on the door, and his wife comes and she sees me in the robes, and she looked at me like I was like some salesman at the door that she didn't want to see, and she kicked me out. Well, I sat in the driveway. See, Krishna gives you the boldness to do these. And the ambassador comes in and he sees me in the driveway. What are you doing? I said, well, my guru wanted me to go see you and talk to you about something. I'm an American citizen, but your wife kicked me out. And he said, oh, yeah, yeah. So he took me to his bhajan kutir. Well, it was his man cave. He took me to his man cave. And he said, yes, my wife is like that. Uh, so I said, my guru asked that I'm an American citizen. Can you give us a free apartment in Delhi? And I can see the machinations of his mind. It's like, well, I'm not a realtor. I can't do that. I'm an ambassador. I said, but see, Prabhupada gave me plan B. If he won't give us a free apartment, we'll pay for one in any currency of the world. You want drachma, you want pesos, you want yen. So this family started building the movement, and uh, eventually, well, in every in every office, every corporation, and every movement, there seems to be one rule enforcer who's more politically correct, they think, than others. So there was a devotee named Harsharani. Her name sounds harsh. Harsharani, yeah. So I was in the middle of an invisible place in Golden Gate Park where people would just go by. The Yamamoto indigenous people in the Amazon are called the invisible people because they can become invisible. So I was in my invisible little Len, and Jamuna, well, Joan at the time, comes, she pops in, and I was reading the Bhagavad Gita Penguin edition before we had ours. And she said, in the most, and I'm going to reiterate some of it because it's a good riff, the most unromantic proposal of all times. Parsharani says that if you live together, you got to get married. Oh, well, I was a hippie, you know. So, okay, so we go to the Swami and said, well, we want to get married. And he said, but first you might get initiated. Suddenly I kind of felt, no, this means surrender. I didn't quite know the whole thing, but oh, first meeting. Well, see, now we know better, but there's a fire sacrifice, a yajna, with the initiation and the marriage. It was so funny when we did it in England at the Roundhouse doing a music gig. They pulled the fire out, and I said, "That guy just broke his guitar. Why are you messing with our fire?" He didn't know what I was talking about. So instead of real wood, it was fruit box wood. And instead of ghee, it was oleomargarine. So it sputtered. And then there was a third person, Hayagriva's wife, Shamananda. She got initiated. Oh yeah. So I wasn't sure when we said we want to get married. I asked him, when should we get married? And this is how he knew. He saw into my heart. He said, tomorrow. Oh no, not so. Tomorrow. Oh yeah, he knows. I didn't want to. Plus, a born again Christian showed up somehow trying to convince me not to be a devotee. But he was so obnoxious that he pushed me closer. Do I want to join these hateful, vindictive, fault finding people? So we got initiated. Okay, now we want to get married. When should we get married? Tomorrow. So now at the marriage was a woman with a baby on the next cushion, and she wanted to marry the Swami. Well, people were considering it because he was trying to get his green card, an immigration card, but he had to explain, I'm a sannyasi. No, I can't marry. But she still, but you see, who can blame her? We all fell in love with him. We all wanted to marry him in a sense. So, but the, the child's head was hitting the ground. And we were all looking like that. And he's transcendental. He's a lot of the times in the photos, you see him looking into Vaikuntha, into heaven. So he was looking into heaven, but finally he saw. And he said, pick baby up. And she was a mother. She was a space cadet, but she was a mother. And he said, we'll be strong baby. And everyone laughed. So this is the charm that just made us fall in love with him enough to give up some things and substitute it with another way of life. Now, in the process of this newness, saris, dhotis, incense, prashadam, all these things was we could feel a purification process. And at one point, some of my past consciousness things were coming into me like a dream, going out, things I didn't want to think about. But I had the luxury that I could ask the Swami, what is this? These things I don't want to think about, things that he said this is the purification process. That it'll go in and it'll be burnt out by the positive alternative of Krishna consciousness. So there was a deity of Krishna in a shop. You can show that picture. And I used to go to the shop and say, can we have that Krishna? And they said no. But then it was not in the shop window anymore. And so I went to the shop, the people, and said, I've been asking, can I have Krishna please for our temple? And we were liked in the neighborhood because we would feed people. We would be feeding people. And some people really needed it because everybody needed it. But so finally the person said, you can have Krishna for $35. Yes. Well, there's a thing called Chaitra Guru, where intuition, wisdom enters your heart. And that's what happened. So I said to the $35, we only had one dhoti and one sari. We didn't have any money. We were austere. So I went out in the street and I said, my father's in jail. My father's in jail. Can I please have some money? Uh, my best friend's in jail. He's blue. Well, actually, Sham. Can I have some money? My little child's in jail, because sometimes our relationship with Krishna is as a parent. And by the way, in psychology, there's a thing where we can parent our own child self for healing. Think about that. We, as our parent self inside, can heal our child self inside. Yeah, it's Bradshaw. It's a psychological. Anyway, $35 came like that. And I took him to the park, fed him, and then showed him to the Swami. Well, then he said, okay, I'm going to put Kartamashi on the altar. And so I won't sit on the altar anymore. There's a thing called the Vyasasana, which is the Parampara system, oral tradition of gurus and written tradition of gurus passing down the wisdom, and they get to sit on the special seat. So he sat on the Vyasasana. Now, these two stories I'm going to reiterate for the people tomorrow, but let's just say it's part of my jazz riff. That there are certain things in the music set that you put in because. Okay, so he's on the Vyasasana. No, Kartamashi was on the altar where Prabhupada was sitting, playing the bongo drum, no mridanga. So I hear a bump on the wall, boom, boom. And Swamiji goes like this to me. He goes, now the first time I saw him do this, I thought, why is he telling us to go away? No, in India, this means come here, come here. So he goes like that to me, and he says, Gurudas, what is that noise? Why did he pick me? Kamal was there, Vishnu John, Madhavisa, Samashunda. Why did he pick me? Why did he pick me to go on TV? We got along good. Why did he pick me to get Radhanath out of the crowd? Why did he pick me to go to Lalit Prasad Thakur? Why did he pick me to be at the signing of the Juhu thing? Nearest. He took me everywhere. So he took me, okay, Gurish, what is that? Well, I knew what it was because next door was a charity group started in Ireland originally, the Diggers, but there was also a motorcycle gang called the Hells Angels. And the Hells Angels were beating people up and doing. And so I go out in the fresh air after the kirtan and I knock on the door. And a huge guy opened the door. He had a few teeth out. He had a Nazi swastika etched in his cheek. That doesn't look like a good sign. But I had my bead bag. He had a stiletto. I had my sandals. He had his boots. I had my bicycle. He had a motorcycle. So now I would have said, can you party less hardy? But then I don't know what I said. Our guru's going to speak. You maybe not bang on the wall. So he said, well, I was banging on the wall because of your singing, man. So there's a jazz turn, knock yourself out. But I decided I wouldn't say that. So he said, your guru is the heaviest, he's deep. I won't bang on the wall when he's speaking, but when I hear the music again, I might do that. And I said, yeah.
He didn't like the music?
He loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was so ecstatic, but his manifestation of loving it was to bang against the wall. So then, next week, again, Prabhupada's on the Vyasasan, and one of the devotees named Govindadasi, a great artist, her parents were there visiting the temple. Good night, Krishna. Good night, Radha. Good night, Jagannath. Dream of yourself. I say dream of Krishna. Dream of yourself. You got such a good heart, you do. You're just brimming with understanding and anyways. They were great. And well, before I get to the Vyasasan story, that's a good point. In the material world, things start out great, but they decay. And so we were having the mantra rock dance, a special dance with the great groups, and Allen Ginsberg came, and Timothy Leary, and Swami uh, something Ananda. Any rate, uh, because they were beating up people at dances, Gurudas says, would you please become our security guard? Because if they're our security guard, they won't crash the dance. Now, their only means of support was manufacturing method, speed, a drug. But now they had another thing, and they made themselves security guards as a business. But then Altamont, there was a concert called the Rolling Stones in Altamont, and they actually murdered someone. So a good idea. So we had to be careful, the razor's edge.
At the show.
Yeah, at the concert. It's a famous.
A year after.
Yeah. So now, the man from Texas thought he went right up to the Vyasasan, where the Swami was. And people from Texas, even after Alaska, think that they were better than everyone else. Because we got oil, and we got riches, and our state's the biggest state. And so he goes up and he says, why does my daughter have to have an Indian name? He couldn't even say Indian. Why does my daughter have to have an Indian name? At this point, what?
Father Gurudas
Yeah,
from Texas.
I just saw her. She's doing great. Well, at this point, the Indian ambassador was coming. A lot of people were coming because the temple was very vibrant and we fed people. So the Patels of Gujarat went up to the altar to hear the great wisdom of the Swamiji. And so Prabhupada's very humorous, but he's very smart and very clever. So he says, why does my daughter have to have an Indian name? And he's going, and then the Patels were there, and he's going like this. He felt like General Custer surrounded by Indians. So Prabhupada says, you do not like Indians? And he goes, well, I like Indians all right, but why does my daughter have to have an Indian name? And he said, if she's happy, why do you object? I saw him disarm so many parents from that. So then, slowly, he gave us the Vedic culture. He told us about Lord Jagannath and the Rath Yatra festival from Puri. And we were really thriving. And I had an apartment that I gave him. And are you from Bangalore? No. So, what? You vacated and gave over. Yeah. So then it was Lord Chaitanya's appearance day, and he told us to be in the temple for the whole day and chant Krishna japa and chant kirtan and read this manuscript of Chaitanya Chaitamrita. And you stay in the temple the whole day and you fast. But you see, he's such a kindly father that he gave Mukunda and I a piece of rock candy and said, if you can't fast, you barbarians, he didn't say you barbarians, but you can eat this. So we went in the temple. Now there was a great devotee named Jayananda. Great example, hard worker, selfless, man of the people. And another devotee named Jivananda from Texas, who ate one bite of prasadam and stayed. And so in the middle of the day, they go like this to me. And what's that? Oh, it means let's go outside the temple. Well, I said, no, Swamiji said we should stay in the temple and chant all day and fast. They said, we have an idea, just come with us. So it was Jayananda and Jivananda. I figured two Anandas were more powerful than one Das. So we go out in the temple and we go to the second floor. He was on the second floor of the apartment I gave him. And we're chanting there. And he comes to the window and then he goes like that. And we said, oh, I told you Ananda's telling us to go back in the temple. You thought he was saying go back? Yeah, he was going. Upendra comes running out with his dhoti trailing behind him and said, no, we told the Swami, he said he wanted to go. No, in India that means come here. Swamiji wants to see you. So now I'm thinking, Malati's the only one who's been chastised so far for stealing the butter. That's another story. But, it's like going to the principal's office when you're bad in school. I can see there's not too many people who were like me, I guess, but I wasn't really bad, but I did go to the principal's office once or twice. Uh-oh, we're going to go. And we come in there, and he's got the oceanic smile, and he says, Krishna has given you the intelligence inside. It's called Chaitra Guru. As you're chanting inside the temple, now chant outside the temple, and this is called Harinam. And so do it every day. And that's the beginning of the Harinam. So then it was driving, and he sent us to England because it was the center of the world, and our only plan was we got to meet the Beatles. And Krishna works in mysterious ways. The Hells Angels were the same Hells Angels were going to beat up the Beatles, but because they stayed at our place for dinner and fell asleep, their weapons were on the floor. Even Hells Angels get jet lag and they fell asleep. And Ken Kesey stayed up, my friend from, yeah. He asked, why do you need a guru? And I said, would you want a doctor that's not educated? He got it. We were friends. So we got to meet the Beatles because of the Hells Angels, in a sense. And that put us on the map in England. And we grew and grew, and then I was sent to India. And I'm going to be telling about that. It was glorious. And I'll be telling stories. I'll tell one story. When we were constructing the Krishna Balaram temple, first we were going to get a temple down in the middle of town from a king, but Krishna, it didn't work, so we built our own temple. And some people were stealing our construction. Now it was a whole town, it was Krishna's Makanchur, but this was actually a, a little suburb of thieves, and they were accepted. And so they were stealing some construction things. So someone asked Prabhupada, well, can we get a gun? So I'm thinking, he says, yes, just like the Lord Nrsimha asked on Harinam, yes. He said, but shoot over their heads, not at them, and then they'll go. And then he illustrated it with a very nice story. He said there was a devotee of Narada Muni who was a snake, a serpent. And when he became a devotee, the children of the neighborhood took advantage of him because now he wasn't a snake anymore. He was a meek Vaishnava. And they'd throw rocks at him sometimes. And now he's a snake. How do you think he put on his tilak? Somebody said with his tongue, yes, sir. That's a good guess, but he put on his tilak because the other devotees helped him put on the tilak. Dasana das, with love and acceptance. So, then Prabhupada said, you're a Vaishnava, but you're also a snake. So raise your hoods, and then he imitated a cobra with his eyes like that, but don't fight. So yes, you can shoot over their heads, don't shoot at them. So this is a glimpse of the greatness of Prabhupada. In the next 2 or 3 days, I'm going to be sharing the whole story. Some of these ones I'll repeat again, but because sometimes your minds are so dull, you might need to hear it 3 times to get it. No, that was a joke. I didn't really mean it. Okay, so let's, if there's any questions, yeah.
And so for taking out the Prabhu to come here to make question. My question is mostly what's your about the importance of the association with the master, reflecting on how it influenced you in your
Well, being with the spiritual master is your doorway into Krishna consciousness. And even though we support one another, I couldn't do it just by the books. I needed his example. I needed him to speak to real things that were going on. And that's why the Parampara system, even now, is important with the gurus that were here. If they're not misusing their power and doing it right, it's important because there's even some modern questions you might want to ask the guru. So the relationship with the guru is the whole doorway into Krishna consciousness.
I think we also wanted to add something that, in this on today, we're insisting more on the Vani. You hear your guru speak about Krishna, and the Bapu, the actual physical presence of the guru, that can help and get you more inspired, but the inspiration should be towards the Vani. This is where you have hearing your guru as much as possible.
Yeah.
Then that's where you'll get the maximum inspiration. So the physical association is secondary. But with Prabhupada, we had both.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way because I was such a poor devotee that I needed to be spoon-fed, and you're all such great sadhus that you can do it that way. Yeah, no, but Bapu, yeah, the Vani is also Vipralambha, separation. So yeah, that's what we have, and some gurus don't even have tapes, books, or anything. We're so unfortunate to have so much and each other, but in some ways the Vani is strong, but
Because that's how we're still associated with Prabhupada. We're reading his books, hearing his
yeah,
classes, now go on for many generations.
yes, but a little bit truthfully, I'm sure glad I had the Vapu. But I'm trying to share that with you too.
Because when you're telling all these stories, we feel you're allowing us closer association with Prabhupada. Experience that more with your own.
And you can do it like if you can say, tell us about this category too. What about compassion? What about riding in the car on the freeway? He was adventurous, so one time we jumped a creek in the car, and another time, the first time he was on the freeway, we went 80 miles an hour, and then looked at him and he said, "Can we do this again?" He was not all the time, but he was fun to be with. But sometimes it was like the fire, and his standard and example was so high, and 2 or 3 times he chastised me. But, they were valid ones. Any rate, you're right. We do have each other, and we have the books, and we have the Vani, and so.
Luckily, that spiritual miracle of hearing a perfect soul like Prabhupada brings you right next to him by Krishna's miraculous arrangement.
One time on the train, he it was a compartment of four, and some people put their trunks there, and I was there, lunch came, and then Prabhupada said, come here, and he was lying down, and I didn't know what he wanted. Am I going to lie next to him or put his head on my lap? But then I rearranged the trunks like a Rubik cube, and had my own place to sleep. But it would have been interesting to see what was on his mind. But when he'd rest, sometimes I'd be right by his ear, either reading the Krishna book or talking about Indira Gandhi, a letter to her, or whatever. I was glad that I could be close with him. Any other questions?
For you also, you had so many services that Prabhupada gave you, very important responsibilities, like building the Krishna Balaram Mandir. Did you also spend time as his personal secretary? Like where he would dictate letters or...
I did, but there were so many qualified others. I did it. I was GBC for 2 days, two different places. But when I tried to massage him, I wasn't as strong as Sutakirti and others. And he said, Gurudas, anybody could rub oils, go out and preach. So you see, I had that experience, but he said that to me. So he knew exactly what our expertises were, and he encouraged it, including going to foreign countries and war zones, which I like because then you feel closer to Krishna. They shoot in Northern Ireland, let's go wash our laundry at that laundromat. The next day was a hole in the wall. In Lebanon, they're showing me shells that they're shelling Israel, and I didn't like that. And so the war zones, Prabhupada sent me to them because I was able to do it, but also I would feel closer to Krishna. They say everybody knows God in the foxhole.
Everyone feels closer to God in the foxhole.
Yeah.
Because they're about to die.
So. Yeah, when it's the nitty gritty is coming down. Any other comments, questions?
You've written some of your memories of Prabhupada?
Of what?
You've written some of these amazing things? Oh, yeah? Oh, yes. Okay.
You see, one of us told a joke. I don't know if you can see it, but it shows his humor. He wouldn't let a joke go by. It was really refreshing. So we liked each other. You can see it, and he encouraged it.
This book is all the photos that you took. Are these all by you? Wow.
5,000 photos. I did over 5,000 photos. 5,000 photos or more. They're Prabhupada.
Not that you took. You took that many. Wow.
And it was darkroom, not digital. I had to develop it. I rolled my own film. Did my own darkroom work.
Before the digital age, yeah. Wow. That's glorious. Thank you.
Well, yeah, this shows our history and history. About?
Were you there when he joined, actually? From the Morning Star Ranch, eh? When Prabhupada went there, eh? You didn't go with Prabhupada to the Morning Star Ranch. Really? Wow, that would be a whole story. Can you tell that?
Sure. So this guy, two guys come into the temple. One guy's kind of got a drizzly beard. And this other guy is a little bit taller with a beautiful face, with two girls following him and a 12-string guitar,
And that's Vishnu John.
Vishnu John.
Amazing.
And they invited us up to where they lived, Morning Star Ranch. Now, Morning Star Ranch was a hippie ranch that was registered in the name of God.
Really?
Yes, so when the neighbors tried to evict them, he said, "This is an act of God." And they won the case.
Oh, right.
And he was a limelighter. He was from a folk group. So he was a good musician, the head of the thing.
The other guy that ran the farm?
Lou Gottlieb, what?
Yeah, Lou Gottlieb was a folk singer?
Yeah, the Limelighters.
Oh,
He
yeah.
plays the bass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, check it out.
I've heard the name.
Yeah, well, that's where he got the money for the ranch. So it was a hippie ranch. Tamal Krishna was living in a tree.
Yeah.
But see, Tamal, we played him some tapes and gave him a taste, and then he became gung-ho. And he said to Lou Gottlieb, I'm doing bhakti. And Lou Gottlieb played Bach on the piano. I'm doing bhakti too.
That's funny.
So Madhavisa, Rabati Nandan.
Gorhari, he was there. He tells the story.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he was naked there, growing potatoes.
Everybody was pretty.
That was the lifestyle.
Yeah, it's
nature's
the 60s. So then they came back to the temple, and well, Madhavisa was on the way to Big Sur, and I gave him a picture of Gopal Krishna. I made stationery, that beautiful one with the deer. And I told him, put this on an altar when you eat your food. And from that, he became a devotee. So 4 or 5 devotees were living there. Again, like me, they were so impressed with the Swami that they became first-class devotees. And we would go to Morning Star Ranch, I think another time, but there were a lot of communes and a lot of ranches going on. And so they came from the Morning Star Ranch.
Wonderful. They did huge service. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gurudas. More to be followed tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I was.
Morning class at 8 o'clock. But the evening, you have an afternoon session. Okay. So what time is that afternoon?
It starts at 4:30
4:30.
with some devotees, and then I think tomorrow is Saturday. Yeah, 6 to 7.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. In the morning is Srimad Bhagavatam class at 8 o'clock, and then 6 to 7, and then again 7:30 to 8:15.
Wonderful.
So tomorrow is
Big waves of super nectar. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gurudas Prabhu ki jai. Hare Krishna. Vaishnav Sangha ki jai. Thank you. Hare